welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Worst family podcast where we watch trilogies to find out which film we should make an offer and can't refuse. I am the Godfather himself, and with me are my fratelli.
I'm Grana, and just when I thought I was out of podcasting, they pull me back in.
And mi chiamo Luca Morgana, and someday, and that day may never come, I will call upon you to do a service for me. That day is today. Please subscribe to our podcast.
Alrighties, there's only one film that has such gruffly coarse voices like that, and that is, of course, the Godfather trilogy. That is the Godfather Part 1, 2, and 3. I know one of the biggest trilogies of all time. The first two considered some of the best films of all time, if not the perfect films. Something else to ask, you guys hadn't seen these before, had you?
No, it was like definitely one of those, a series of films that were on my list of shame, let's say. Absolutely.
Never seen any of them. And yeah, it's that series that I've always talked about. I need to watch them. Like promising my wife, I will watch them. I swear one day I will. But she hadn't seen them either, really. So yeah.
Yeah, I think being like the first two being 70s films and being 2.5 and 3.5 hours long, really. Actually, I think it's just 3 hours and 3.5 hours. Really does sort of turn people off because you know it's an investment. Yep. So I can't hold that against you guys. But what did you guys know of The Godfather before watching it? Like, what's your awareness?
I mean, I was aware that they were very influential movies. Before they started, my wife's like, "What are these movies actually about?" And I'm like, they're about the mob, they're about the family, and you've probably seen scenes from these movies and you don't realize it because they're just parodied everywhere. And the scene opens and it's at Vito's daughter's wedding, and she's like, "This scene's in Zootopia," and I'm like, "Yes, like this scene is in every movie."
It's the first thing I said when we were watching it. I was like, "Oh, this is the scene from Zootopia."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't seen Zootopia, but it's the opening of Rugrats in Paris as well. And so every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, man, that was where I really got initiated. And how do you guys feel after finally seeing these source films?
So, yeah, like it was, I was kind of captivated watching them. Like they were long films, obviously. As a Lord of the Rings fan, I'm used to long films. So it was sort of a thing though. I left it kind of late in this fortnight to watch them. So it was kind of a thing like I watched the three of them like one after the other, like each night, like, one a night. And but I'd come to the end and I found for the most part I flew through them. Like I was just like captivated and I was like keen to watch the next one and like continue that story. And so much, like what Grana just said, like so much stuff from these movies have been parodied and stuff that I didn't even like. There's obviously stuff in Zootopia, you can sort of figure out, that's obviously a parody of The Godfather, but just so much stuff in pop culture and stuff that I've said I didn't know was from these movies. Seinfeld, I found parodies The Godfather a lot, and so many things. Like I'd be like, where's that scene going to happen? Because I was like, I know that's a Godfather scene in Seinfeld. When is that going to happen? Where people are like kissing his fingers and the door closes on someone. I was like, when is that going to happen? And then, so it was interesting to see all the pop culture references and where they originated from. But I loved these movies, and yeah.
Brianna?
I was a bit worried going into these movies because, like, the other movie that I'll compare it to that we've done on this podcast is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like they were movies that were very much heralded as like very important films I felt like I should have seen. And while I could see the craft in them and I could see why people like them, they weren't movies I particularly enjoyed watching. I thought this is going to be the same. Like I'm going to have to sit through 9 hours of movies that I'm not that excited about and then make a podcast about it. But like particularly compared to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I know came a fair bit before these movies are timeless. Like they're really, really well made. And yeah, like you say, look, they're so ingrained in pop culture. Like, I wonder how much... Like, I feel like I know a lot about Italian culture, and it probably comes because of these movies. Like, I feel like Italian culture is just part of Hollywood. Like, so many movies have pizza and pasta and, like, all this food and these families getting together and eating around a table. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe these movies are what started all of that. And it's amazing the impact that they've had on cinema.
I'll just chime in here. Like you mentioned something, Grana, the other day. that you watched 1 and 2 and you kind of wanted to go back and watch them again after you
Yeah.
watched them, and that you finally got Al Pacino. And I had the
Yes, I
same
want
thing.
to talk about Al Pacino.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely the MVP in this trilogy. But yeah, I think you're right. Watching this again on this rewatch, I realized there's really interesting insight into Italian American culture, and sort of it explores more than I realized how pivotal the Italian immigration was to America's ascension as a power, to its building as a country, and I know, yeah, how pivotal that culture specifically is to like what American identity is now. And you're right, things like pizza and pasta are possibly the most ubiquitous food, and like they're everywhere. Every part of the world has those things. And even though, I don't think they created pasta, but like Italian pizza and pasta is like, that's what you think of. You think of pasta, you think of like spaghetti and meatball sort of stuff. And that's not even an Italian thing, it's an Italian American thing specifically. It's just fascinating. You're right, like watching this, and I was reading about it. These films introduced a lot of the, I think they cemented a lot of the awareness in just contemporary culture. Like this introduced a lot of terms like consigliere and a couple of the others. All these like Italian terms that are used that no one really knew about. But once this came out, because everybody saw the first film, and so then it became part of the discourse. It became part of how people just exist in the world. They're like, yeah, we know what that is because of these films, right? Like, yeah, I cannot express how influential these are.
So Conan, obviously we were movie snobs and had never seen this. You are very much not a movie snob. I'm guessing you watched these. No, you know what I mean. Like I'm very much like, I've watched every Avengers movie. You probably watched these when you're like 6 years old. So what's your experience with The Godfather? When did you first watch it?
My father was The Godfather. And this is actually, this is technically a documentary on us, but they changed it to Italian Americans to avoid lawsuits. Anyway,
true.
I saw these in high school when I was getting into film because they were the pivotal films that you needed to see.
Yep.
So I only watched the first two. I never saw the third because I heard it was a significant drop. And I just, from what I read, you didn't really need to so much. And we'll talk about that a lot, I think. So I watched them in high school, and it was both great for my education, but also like watching anything as a teenager, you don't have the best attention span. You can't appreciate stuff the same. So I remember enjoying them and being like, all right, I know where this stuff's from. I'm definitely, I'm totally glad I did. And I knew they were good films, but watching them now in my 20s, I can just appreciate them so much more. And like you say, the second one's a little bit of a slog because it is nearly 4 hours. And like they could have, I actually had to pause and just watch. I watched it in the afternoon and finished it in the night because I just had too much to do, which
it does have an intermission. So.
Exactly. So it's designed for that. So I don't feel guilty.
It's a long movie, but I mean, we'll probably get into this later, but it's compared to the first one, it's a harder movie to watch. I think it's a lot darker, at least.
It is.
I'll say that.
But I think even though it's so long, it's just these films have an incredibly subtle like narrative propulsion, and they just get you in so much, and the drama is so tight. But yeah, watching this again, I'm like, wow, that, like you guys said, it breezed by. I'm super into it. I loved watching the first two specifically, and I was like, I can see these. A lot of people I know rewatch these pretty regularly. And I can see why they would be like. I would watch these when they do a new version. If I know sometimes like the orchestra in cities will do like a live screening with a live orchestra, and I'm like, I would totally go and see that because they're just these experiences that I think I really got a lot out of and are really valuable.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I think they do something that a lot of really good media does, and they just like throw you into this universe. Like the start of that first movie, like you're at this big wedding. There's so many characters. There's so much going on. They're talking about Luca Brasi, who you don't know who he is, but they've got this long conversation about him. Like they really just throw you in there, and it gives you a great sense of the family. But like you're really compelled to like keep going. Like I want to understand what's going on here. Like I want to understand this world because it's just so well done, so compelling, and like that's what makes me want to watch it again. Like I'm sure there's lots of stuff I missed, and I feel like a second watch, a third watch will really show me more.
Yeah. Did you guys find these films hard to follow? And there's no shame if you did, because I did on these, even on these rewatches. I'm like, the plotting, especially the second one, is very dense, and there's so many names getting thrown around.
Yeah, totally. Like it's a hard movie to be distracted in. Like if you're looking at your phone for 5 minutes, and you come back, it's like someone's died, someone's betrayed someone, and you're like, how did he even know? It's yeah, there's a lot going on, lots of names being thrown around, sometimes not even in English. Yeah, it requires your attention, but I think it kind of in a lot of ways like demands your attention, and it's got that, it earns your attention, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably could do with a rewatch for a few things. Like, I know there were several points where I was like, okay, so who's this person they're talking about again? I felt like that annoying person in the theater asking questions. Even in the third one, I kept being like, so what's the point of this? Like, what's the goal here, and what are they trying to actually do?
Yeah, the
What's
third one's
this and who's that? And
a bit weird.
why is there an Apache helicopter like shooting them down? I was like, it's
yeah. I think I was checking names constantly to be like, is that person this one? Yep, okay. And there was one moment where obviously we're going to spoil everything, but when I've already forgotten, when they kill the guy in the car in the grass field, it's like leave the gun, take the cannoli. Because you see him in the car, and I was like, he doesn't look like anyone I've seen. And I had to look it up, and I realized, oh, it's actually that guy, because he looks very different in the car than he does back at the wedding when we saw him.
Yeah.
And it was just this detail, like, I guess I wasn't paying enough attention, but man, these films are...
Conan, yeah. It's take the gun, leave the cannoli.
What, did I say it the wrong way?
It's not leave the gun and take the cannoli.
No, it is. No, it is.
No, it is. It's leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Is it? Oh,
yeah, that's
even better.
That's the whole thing. It's like they're Italians. They love food.
When I was trying to remind myself of quotes, the quote page had it the other way around. Then they messed that up.
Wrong.
Yeah.
It's take the cannoli because his wife needed him to get it for the thing.
True. Okay. That's funny.
All right. Do you guys want some stats?
Stats.
There it is. All right. The Godfather 1, made in 1972, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, written by him and the author of the book, Mario Puzo. Made on a budget of around $7 million, made $280 million, which boggles my mind a little bit.
Wait, how much was the budget, sorry?
$7 million.
Okay. Yeah, wow.
It's got a Metascore of a perfect 100. Currently stands ranked as number 2 on the IMDb top 250 list, which is behind Shawshank for some friggin' reason.
Shawshank's a good movie.
It's not better than The Godfather.
It's on this level, but it's a good movie.
It shouldn't be number 1. Godfather also won 3 Oscars, including Best Picture. Godfather 2, made 2 years later in 1974 with a budget of $13 million, and it only grossed around $80 million. Has a Metascore of 90, which is number 3 on the IMDb list, and won 6 Oscars, including Best Picture. Godfather 3, made in 1990, so 16 years later, a budget of $54 million, but made $137 million. It has a Metascore of 60 and won 0 Oscars, despite being nominated for 7.
What?
I know, it's shocking.
There's some good performances in. We'll get to it, but number 3 is not all bad.
No.
There's some bad performances, though.
There is.
I'm super keen to talk about that. Gosh. All right. Well, that leads in nicely. Does it deserve to be a trilogy? Because that's the great debate.
No.
Unpack that.
Not the way it's done, obviously. And now, when Francis Ford Coppola, is that how you pronounce
Coppola.
it?
Yeah, Coppola.
Like, I mean, he came out and basically said he didn't want to do a third one. Like, and he didn't for 16 years.
They drove a dump truck of money up to my house.
Exactly. And he had a few box office bombshells, I think, and basically then went to that. But he didn't envision a part 3. He envisioned part 2 to be the finale of that story. So I don't think it was made to be a trilogy. And the way it turned out, you can it shouldn't have been a trilogy at the end. Like, maybe they do a part 3 like a year or 2 after the part 2 came out and have a different way of continuing that story, and and it is, but not in this reality. So, in my opinion,
I disagree. I think, like, obviously 3 is it's going to be the worst movie. I don't think there's any, there's no spoiling that. Everybody knows that the Godfather 3 isn't as good as the other 2. I still
Conan's got a hot take with that.
I was worried there was going to be a hot take here, but I still really enjoyed number 3, and I do think there's some closure that we don't get on Michael. Like, We see his rise, we see his fall, but it is really interesting to see what happens to him next because he doesn't die at the end of Godfather 2. He's still the head of this huge empire. I don't know. I think he is a compelling enough character that we do need. Like, he deserves a third story. We deserve closure on what he does, how he ends. Like, obviously, this movie could have been done better, but I don't think it was so bad that it's like, wiped it off the face of the earth or anything.
Conan.
I think it's only in the light of the other two that people think it's really bad.
It definitely suffers from that. You can tell that if this was like the first one or something, it would be much more lauded. But because it's in the shadow of very big giants, it's like you have to hit it. You have to hit a home run, or you're going nowhere. And yeah, I don't know. Can I just ask, what you guys watch this on?
Wait. What's your opinion?
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
Because I have an answer. I just want to figure this out. You guys watch this on streaming, yeah?
Yes.
So I'm really actually keen to see the Coda version, the recut version.
Yeah. So I've only seen that. So I got that and watched the Coda edition.
You son of a bitch!
Like,
you gave us the bad version.
Hey, you can buy DVDs like a good person.
True. Sorry.
But I was reading about the differences. It's not hugely. It's not like a crazy recutting or like a remake or anything. It's fairly similar. The main differences are. I just want to address this real quick.
Is there less or more incest?
It's exactly what I was about to say.
There's a little bit less. That is a part they focused on it a bit less. But all they really did is there's bits are cut out. So there's about 4 minutes shaved off the film. So scenes are cut out earlier, stuff like that. The ending is altered and the opening scene is switched. So can you guys tell me what the opening scene of the normal version is?
It's at his where he's being honoured with the award from the church.
Okay. Because the Coda edition actually opens with that scene where he goes to the Archbishop and he's he makes the deal and he's like, I'll give you $600 million if you let me into Immobiliari.
International Immobiliari.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. So that's the one, and reading that really shocked me because that's the inciting incident. That's why he's getting on it, as far as I'm aware, is because he's being this nice guy. I could be reading that wrong.
I didn't take it, like I took it that he had paid his way into that position, but this was just him continuing to pay his way into the good graces of the church, not the inciting incident. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so either way, so that's how Coppola did that. So he's put that as the original. He's saying that's the opening. He's changed the ending so we don't actually see Michael die, which
is what I wanted to talk about. Like when Grana brought up the closure with Michael and stuff like that, and seeing him die, I didn't like that. I didn't like that we just get this like 20-second scene. I guess it's like this thing of, look, he died of old age. Like he didn't get whacked or anything.
He died of a broken heart.
Yeah, many years later.
He died on his own. Like he died in kind of a pathetic way.
Yeah, like he's not surrounded by family. It's not like this thing. But I don't know. It kind of felt like it was like and here's your closure. Here's a 20-second scene. He died, and now the movie ends. Like I didn't feel like it was like, I don't know. That's just me personally. But
I don't agree. But that's okay.
Well, I mean, if I had to take sides, like I think Coppola agrees with you, Luke. That's why he did this. He intentionally recut it away because he said he likes the idea that we don't, even though it's called The Death of Michael Corleone.
Exactly. The movie's called The Death of Michael Corleone.
It's like he says, well, it's more of a spiritual death. The idea is we see him alone and old and suffering. And so he's not awarded the reprieve of death. He actually has to live with his choices forever. So I think just my point about all this is that looking at it as a coda, which means epilogue in musical terms, which is, it's after the main story. It's like a thematic sum up. I think it does shine a light on the film and it makes it a bit more enjoyable because overall, I agree, it doesn't need to be a trilogy. I think 1 and 2 stand as they are. And 3, it almost shouldn't be The Godfather 3. It should just be The Godfather Coda. And
I like that.
Yeah, and I don't know, like you probably tweak some other things, but it doesn't need to exist because I think the story works better overall as a rise and fall story. You see how the mafia rises in the first, how this way of life sort of functioned then, and then you see the very beginnings and the very ends of it as well in the second one. And okay, this isn't an eternal dynasty because things get corrupted and stuff. And whereas the third one just kind of, I don't know, it has some weird character choices in it that I don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does.
Oh no, I'm not the incest though. I'm 11 out of 10 for that.
Right.
Your cousin Vinny.
Imagine making out with someone and calling them cuz. It's so bad.
But it's even weirder because that's
Exactly.
imagine directing your daughter to do that.
Yeah, I know.
And being like, okay, sweetheart, I love you, and now can you just make out with this dude you're pretending to be your cousin?
And pretend he's your cousin.
Yeah, and I want to show me lust, show me desire.
Just think of cousin Stefan, you know?
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. Anyway, Dennis Franz, I think he's an easy pick here because he can actually be lots of these Italians.
Yeah, he fits into these movies really well.
Luca Brasi.
He's a bit small. Luca Brasi is
That's what makes
massive.
him threatening. Just this
Like
lumbering.
Make him like Hyman Roth or something. Or Frank Pentangeli. One of those. Yeah. One of his adversaries.
Yeah, I was thinking like Antebello. The bad guy, like the one that Eli Wallach plays in the third one, just like this kind of snivelly old dude. He's maybe not old enough, but
that mungs down on that poison food like there's no tomorrow.
He's loving the cannolis.
That scene.
And I'm like,
that opera goes way too long. Anyway,
yeah, that's where it lost me. Like and I already knew the ending as well, so I'm like, I'm just waiting for it. Yeah. Okay, obvious question time. Wooden spoon. It's number 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not even a debate. Why though? What are your guys' reasonings for?
All right. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but
you can't say incest.
No, but Sofia Coppola is not great in these movies by any means. Like
not
her
an actress.
Her acting is just incredibly flat. She just doesn't fit the role in any way, shape, or form.
She was never meant to be, right? It was meant to be several different people before her.
Winona Ryder, which would have been sick.
He was the main cast, and like at one point Madonna wanted the role. Like there's a bunch of people that it sort of went through, and so it's really, you can tell.
Yeah.
Do you think she's the main factor though? That
I think she's a really easy thing to pick on. Like she's a very glaringly bad character. I think not having Tom Hagen in there is criminal, and especially when you hear about the reasons of why he wasn't in it, like pay him the money, holy dooly.
Oh, no.
I didn't look into the reasons why, so it was a money issue.
He wanted to get paid more closely to what Al Pacino was getting paid, and by all reports, the plot was going to be heavily centered around him.
I really liked Tom Hagen.
He's such a good character.
He's probably the most interesting character.
And to kill him off screen is just
I think that's what it was to me. I'm like, there's no sort of moral center here, and even though he's not a moral person, he is kind of this strange like morality of the world, being a lawyer, and he anchors the whole universe. And without him, it gets lost up its own arse.
And I feel like he's that tie to his dad. I feel like he's that thing, like, you know, he was that for his dad and now he's that for Michael. And it's, I don't know. He was sorely missed. Like I was waiting for him to pop up and then they just make a side-by-side comment and introduce his boring son. And I'm like,
Andy Garcia is really good in this. I think his performance is...
There's some good performances in this. Like, I think Al Pacino is decent. Like, I think Diane Keaton's really good in it. I think Andy Garcia is really good in it. Like, there's a fair few good performances in here, but
I like Andy Garcia, but
like as a person,
like he's a good friend. But like, you know, I feel like there's parts where it's not like, it doesn't feel like Godfather. It feels like a 90s mafia movie, like where he takes out the guys in his apartment. Where
he actually whipped that dude though.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like the way he just like boom. Like I feel like it's way too. I don't know. I feel like he's not supposed to be one of the henchmen like of the old. Like he's the new generation, right? Like he's the new mafia.
He's not.
Yeah, he's not sort of defenseless and has some muscle doing it for him. He's kind of that himself.
Yeah.
But I'm inclined to agree because Coppola's entering this weird stage in his career, right? Like this is just before he makes Dracula, which by all reports is, you know, super flamboyant and extravagant and like very operatic. And that's sort of the way I see this film. It's like an opera, and you can in that scene with the opera that goes for 3 hours.
Literally has an opera.
Like I feel like this film is much more theatrical. It's trying to be much more grandiose, whereas the first two are very sort of solemn, and even though they're really like they've got a lot of extravagance in them, in the huge parties and the lifestyle, it's also really grounded. Like you see the inner workings, you see these greasy dudes in singlets making spaghetti, and then it just feels
it's very grounded. Yeah,
it is like it doesn't feel like a flashy film. It feels like a sort of a grounded, solemn, realistic look at it with the highs and the lows. Whereas the third one really, because it's playing up that like the salvation arc a lot and the redemption, and so it's got this real sort of like that classic Vatican Catholicism, like the huge pomp. And I think waiting 16 years, Coppola's just in a different headspace, and he's making a different film a very different film.
That's the thing. I feel like what you said about 1 and 2, like they're very grounded, and I feel like that makes things pack a lot more of a punch when it gets brutal. Like it feels, like it feels real almost. Like I picture Robert De Niro shooting the guy in his doorway, and it's like, oh, like it's not how you would picture in a movie people react. It's not like over the top. It's like this subtle thing. Sonny getting killed in the causeway, like it's like, oh,
that's not over the top.
Okay, no, I know. As I was saying that, I was like, wait a minute, that is pretty over top.
That's a terrible example.
No, I know. Okay, but like you got the helicopter in number 3. While I do like
the helicopter's very weird.
The helicopter's this very weird thing where it doesn't even make sense. Like it's a skyscraper in New York just getting attacked by this helicopter.
And the cops are just like, we didn't hear anything. We didn't hear that Apache just obliterating a building.
While I don't mind the kill like on the horse where he shoots the guy, it's very much like a movie a kill, like it feels like a Hollywood movie kill instead of like a theater, if you know what I mean, like in the old ones. But I don't know, like watching the wedding in the first one, like it feels like I'm watching an Italian wedding almost. Like it's just this sort of, and there's a camera there that day, the day of his daughter's wedding. Like I did have a moment during the wedding when I asked my wife, I was like, is the whole movie the wedding? I was like, because like 50 minutes in, I was like, does the whole movie take place on this day? Oh, I don't know.
A damn long wedding.
It seemed like it.
It's a busy day to be a Sicilian father, I'll tell you what.
Yeah. It doesn't sound fun at all.
No, it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
Also, the plot of number 3 is really convoluted. I still don't understand what happened in it.
It's a bit all over the place. Like, I really appreciate them including the church. Like, I think it's really interesting to see Michael try to redeem himself through that. But at the end of the day, you just see that they're just as corrupt as he was.
Yeah.
Like there's almost no one in this world that is good, really. Like, right? Like in his life, at least, anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really interesting path to go down. But yeah, they just spend like a ton of time in Rome and stuff. Like, I want to be back in New York. Like, I want to be on the streets. Or back in Vegas. Like I don't know. I don't want to be in Rome. I don't want to be in Europe.
And then there's just a lot more. It's kind of rushed over, but there's a lot of like someone has dishonored someone, so he hires the hitman to kill Michael. And it's like this hitman is so notorious he'll never stop until he's killed. But I don't know. And then deals are getting made, but also turned back on in the last minute. But then it's like, no, I'm still secretly going to make this deal.
There's the donkey noises.
Yeah, they were weird.
I don't know. Like, there's the Mr. Bean Pope dude who like betrays him at the end and gets thrown down the thing and gets assassinated at the end. You know what I'm talking about? Looks like Mr. Bean.
I don't.
He's the guy that Michael deals with most of the time in like from the church in the third.
Oh, one. The bank. The bank.
Yeah.
The Archbishop. Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the thing about number 3. 3, I felt like the most confused, where I was like, I actually don't know what is going on, what the point is. But like Graham said, I do like the whole thing of like, the ultimate mafia, like as in the church, like everyone's corrupt. It's like,
it's a really. Oh, you go.
I was just going to say, like, I was confused in the other movies as well, but whenever I was confused in them, I always felt like Michael's smarter than me. Like, he's figured out how Fredo betrayed him, even though I didn't see it happen. Like, something subtle happened that I didn't pick up on that I'll see next time I watch these movies. But it's because Vito or Michael they're smarter than me. Like, they know what's going on in this world better than I do. In number 3, I felt like, no, this plot just doesn't make any sense. Like, I never felt like they were smarter than me, or they had had one over on me. It's just like, no, this just doesn't make any sense, or it's just too convoluted. Like, yeah.
That's exactly right. The second one, I think, it walks that line really well, where it is a convoluted plot because it's like brokerages and power deals and backdoor things and assassinations and trying to find out who killed who.
Yep.
But it also keeps you aware enough that, like you say, it's like I think I know what's going on, but everyone is keeping information from me, so I'm like them. I'm in the dark.
Yep.
And the first one, I was surprised, is actually a really simple plot. Like it's
a lot more straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still convoluted in terms of like it's not very. They keep a lot of secrets and stuff, but it's a very sort of basic story of like the mafia's, this criminal's trying to take over territory, and that's more or less the narrative. But it's all about the family workings and the dynamic.
Yeah.
Which I love, and of course the incest in number 3 is great. So, who do we blame for The Godfather 3? Is it just Sophie Coppola? I mean, she's the common answer, like you said, Grant.
She's an easy answer.
Yeah.
It isn't easy. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola has a lot to answer for here. Like
the whole Coppola family,
the sins of the father.
I don't know. The more you read about him, the more it's like this dude like makes a movie, earns a bunch of money, loses it immediately, and then is just desperate to make whatever movie he can. I feel like that's how this movie got made, and I feel like he was in such a it's felt like to me like he couldn't wait for the right cast. Like he couldn't wait long enough for the conversations with like Robert Duvall to go through to get him back. He just had to move on. He couldn't wait for a better actress to become available. He just had to go with his daughter.
Yeah. So there was pressure from Paramount. They wanted it made fast. So it's half because he was producer on this, but obviously he still answered to somebody. So I think that's why he also blames it, saying that he wasn't given enough time because he had to write, direct, and all of that in about a year, which I think he wanted at least 2 years to do.
The Peter Jackson defense.
Where do you think he learned it?
Quick question: was Part 2 filmed like with Part 1 at the same time? Because they came out like a year apart. So
they came out 2 years apart. No, I don't think so.
No, apparently they weren't. Like the scene at the end of Godfather 2 where the family's mostly back together again, like doesn't have Vito in it because they couldn't get Brando back.
Yeah,
like,
that felt pretty notable.
Apparently, James Caan got paid the same amount as he got paid for the whole first movie just to appear in that one scene.
Oh, God.
They had a lot of trouble getting that scene together. So,
true.
It's pretty noticeable when he turns up and the camera never shows him. It's like, you guys couldn't.
Here out the hallway. Happy birthday.
Apparently, he was all scheduled to turn up, and he just never showed.
Yeah.
Apparently, they'd organised him. He just never showed up. But anyway.
The more you read about Marlon Brando, that was how he was. Just
so quickly on Marlon Brando. Obviously, he's fantastic in the first one.
Phenomenal.
Like, I didn't know that he refused the Oscar for Best Actor, and the whole reason behind it and everything like that. Was not aware of that.
Can you refresh our audience?
Yeah, can you tell us what the reason?
So basically, he won the award for Best Actor. Wasn't there? I'm gonna forget the name. An Indian lady, that was part of the thing that he was helping out. Sweet Flower or Sweetwater or something like that was her name. She got on stage and spoke on behalf of him, and his message was basically about he can't accept this while the film industry and Hollywood mistreat Native Americans, basically. And while this is going, he can't accept this award. I watched the speech that she gave.
I've seen that still of her up on stage a few times.
Yeah, and the crowd boo her when she says that that she's mistreated. The crowd start booing her, but then some people start clapping and supporting her. But then more people chime in with boos. It's a really awkward scene. Roger Moore tries to hand her the Oscar, and she waves it away no thanks. And then they released it. The New York Times released his full statement the next day about the mistreatment of them, why this and that, and refused the Oscar for Best Actor. But
there you go.
He was fantastic, and I did not know that that's not what he looked like when he filmed it. I just thought that's what I thought. I could tell. I thought obviously he had something in his mouth to make that look, and I thought that was prosthetics. I didn't seeing a photo of him in the makeup chair before and after all the makeup to make him look so much older, and not realizing he was actually a young man playing that blew me away. I was like, oh my
He
God,
wasn't that young.
He was in his 40s. Like, he looks really
say-
young in the photo.
I think he might have been in
before
his
the.
50s.
I believe he was
He
47.
was born in
'Cause he was-
1924. So yeah, he's in his late 40s probably.
Yeah, 47 or something like that.
No,
Anyway.
so he's nearly 50.
But he looks a lot younger than he
Yeah.
does without the prosthetics. And it's
There's
like
that-
crazy for me to see him as that after watching The Godfather. Like, I see him as that character.
So you'd never seen him in anything else before this?
No. Like, that's the thing. I'm quite new to the Marlon Brando scene.
So, I mean, he's in Apocalypse Now, another Coppola film, but he's older and very fat in that, which is a really funny story. But like, you see him in,
that.
yeah, it's great. But you see him in like On the Waterfront or Streetcar Named Desire. It's like he is a handsome man. Like you can tell it. He was a dream. Like he was a Hollywood, superstar for a reason. He was a very handsome guy.
Yeah. There's that gif of him like licking his lips and rolling his eyes that floats around Reddit all the time. Turns me on.
Yeah, it's me on a Friday night. Yeah, this film is okay. So there's a lot of messy things here.
Yes.
Who then deserved better? Now, I'm just going to chime in and say I think Sofia Coppola deserves better because she is a fantastic director. And a lot of the internet hated her before the internet. Just the world hated her.
It was the people who would have been on the internet
Yeah,
complaining.
it was real life trolls. They were like, she's ruined this film. And there is still that group that sort of circles that information, like she's the sole cause of the problems.
We all just said that, so no, we didn't.
I think she's bad, but she's not the main reason the film falls apart.
No.
And she's arguably a better director than her father, is my point as well. Hot take. What other reasons do you guys have?
Grana, you're on mute.
Grana, you've muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. Are we talking about who deserved better or?
Who deserved better?
Yes, sorry. Robert Duvall, like, he deserved to be in this movie. Like, this movie deserved to have him in there.
That's Tom Hagen.
As Tom Hagen. Yep. Like, he totally deserved to be in there. I think Al Pacino, like, I think this, like we said, there's really good performances. Like, I think Al Pacino's performance is good. I don't think it's as good as 1 and 2, but it's still good. It's still before Al Pacino we get today, which, I don't know, I do want to talk about still.
I feel like he's entering that phase here, right? Those moments.
He is. He has his moments where he gets real loud and gets real over the top.
And his eyes.
Like, I don't know. I'll just say it now. Before this, like, I didn't get Al Pacino. I didn't understand why people thought he was a good actor. I knew him from Heat and Ocean's 13. Ocean's 13 could have been played by anyone. I wouldn't have even known the difference. But Heat, like, he's memorable in that, but it is so over the top. If you haven't seen that movie, I reckon it's great, but he's really over the top. His acting is just wild.
He's bringing the heat in that film.
Especially across from Robert De Niro. Like, he's just, like, all over the place compared to him in that movie.
It's so good. It's so good.
Have you watched Scarface?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. But
I hadn't seen anything before that, but I get it now. Like, I get why people think he's a good actor. Like, in number 1 and 2, he's phenomenal. And 3, like, you can see there's elements of him overacting. Like, when he has that heart attack and he's talking about the thunder.
Run!
Vincent!
Where is Thunder going? Thunder can't hurt! Harmless noise! Bullshit!
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a bit much.
And he's just like smashing the bench and throwing things off. And it's like,
I was like,
What
I
is
don't know
this?
what's happening.
Sound, it can't hurt me. It's just like, oh.
That's true. Yeah, the first 2 films, his performance is so contained and so he's so stoic, and there's these moments you can see him like scratching at the walls, like trying to contain himself. Like there's this like kinetic energy that he does really well, but never shows it. His performance is phenomenal in the first 2.
That's what I wanted to say about part 3. I feel like Michael's kind of a different character. Obviously, there's time that's passed, but he seems a lot more current day Al Pacino in it. Like, he's not the controlled, like I don't know. In Godfather 2, he's like scary, like he's just really subdued and just like has that sort of, not the ragey Heisenberg, but like the sort of the Gus Fring going, like he's, yeah.
That's a good example. You can tell in shows like that, they took a lot from this, where there is that sense of like, he's a gentleman criminal, like in the street, and he's a war hero. You can tell he feels like a nice guy, but then he just kills a bunch of people, and it's like, oh, this dude's cold.
Well, you see his growth, like at the start, at that wedding, like he's so charming. Like everybody loves him. He's this war hero. He's like, I don't want any part of the family business. Like
That's my family, kid. It's not me.
And you feel that, like, you feel like he's not, like, I want good things for this guy. And then by the end of the second movie, it's like, man, like,
Yep.
like that, when he's talking to his wife about the abortion, like that scene.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch.
That's a brutal scene. That's
It
like,
is.
shitty. Like, yeah, it's, she betrayed him, but like, and that's the thing that I feel in number 3. It's weird how they patch it up. Like, I find like what she did and what he did, like, you know, she was fearful for her kids. He struck her, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, well, let's go for a nice stroll and like have a nice dinner and we'll patch it up. I feel like it wasn't earned, I don't feel, but that's me.
Like at the ceremony at the start, they're definitely antagonistic towards one another. Like I didn't mind it there, but you're right, it does kind of turns on a dime pretty quick, and they're holidaying in Europe.
Yeah, it's something I like the idea of it, where enough time has passed and eventually they can start to, you know, they reach that age where they're like, look, let's just try to focus on the good that we have. But Michael's character in the third one, I feel, is very strange. So Al Pacino didn't like the character, didn't like the fact that Michael feels regret about killing Fredo, and I kind of agree with that. I feel like his character in this is a lot more weirdly repentant of everything. And for a guy who, even though we see him as a great guy at the beginning, I feel like it's a very big backpedal. And in this, he's kind of like, I regret doing everything. I only want to get clean. I hate this whole life. But I feel like part of it is, like, part of the point of his growth is that even though he never wants to get his hands dirty, the allure of power is that you never really even know you want it, but you just do. And him as a character, he does want power. And it's kind of like, even though he's a victim of getting pulled into the family and, you know, how sacred it is, you've got to defend your father, you've got to help your family out. I feel like there is a real sense that he doesn't just dip his toes in and then kind of go, okay, I'm going to reserve it. He's like, no, I'm in it now, so I'm going to go for broke. And that he does still love the power that he gets, and he's on a bit of a trip for that. And so to have him sort of backflip on all that, it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done any of it, I shouldn't have killed Fredo, I think it's a weird betrayal of his character a bit.
I don't know. Like, I always felt like his whole mission from the start, when he started to take over, was like, I'm going to turn this into a clean business. Like, this isn't going to be dirty anymore. This is going to be clean. And I feel like every step of the way, he just had to compromise on that. Like, I just have to do this one last thing, and then it can be a clean business. One last thing, and then we'll be clean. And I just feel like he did that until he died. And I don't know. I didn't mind it. Like, I felt like that was still continuing in the third one. And I mean, he says it explicitly. Like, every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. I don't know.
I don't know. Fredo betrayed the family, and I feel like he would go to his grave being like, I'm glad I killed that traitor.
But he forgave him.
He watched him die. He set it up, and it's, yeah. Like, I don't know. What did you think of the ending of 2? Like, how it just...
Do we want to finish the bad ones first?
Okay. Yeah.
I think we've talked about who deserved better, a lot of people. Do we have a quick... Yeah, Tom Hagen's definitely the winner. How do we fix it? Is there a way to fix it? I already mentioned that, like, not calling it number 3 and making it clear that it's an epilogue helps my appreciation more, where it's like, there's 2 films and this little bit. And they were considering making a 4th one, but then Mario Puzo died in 99. So that just fell apart. So there is more story here. Like, it's the kind of story you can't just keep dipping into and be like, here's Tom Hagen's growth as a young 18 to 24-year-old. And I'd still watch that movie.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I just say cut an hour off and remove the convoluted plot, and 3 is probably better.
I mean, yeah. That's the thing. I don't know. I definitely feel if it wasn't like a part 3 of a story, like you said, if it was like an epilogue, I'd have a different appreciation of it. Like, I love, obviously it was, they got this heavily inspired from The Last of Us with part 2. I love like that it's part 2 and not just like the Godfather 2. I love that it's like part 2 of this story. Like, this is the ending chapter. Like, part 3. It shouldn't have been there, and obviously it was never meant to be there 16 years later, and it's got issues.
Yeah, like, I think you recast Sophie Coppola's character.
Yep.
You get Tom Hagen back. You make the story revolve around them a bit more. Like, I don't know, him being there and doing the deals with the church would have been so much more interesting. Like, I feel like there's a movie it's not that hard to fix. Like, I feel like there's just a few glaring bad things about it. Like, somehow make Andy Garcia's character not blood related. Like,
Yeah,
make that Tom Hagen's son and make him be the one that takes over the family. Because I mean, Tom Hagen's basically a brother to him anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, in all honesty, the incest arc, as much as I love it, is kind of weird.
It's so strange.
It doesn't need to be there. I feel like it's getting there. It's got a point, or it's trying to find a point, but it misses the mark.
And that's the thing. I'd rather that it be like Tom Hagen's son, and this whole thing of it being like, you can't do this because that's putting my daughter at risk. Like, that's the reason I'm against it. Not that like your child could come out with two heads, you know, like.
But that's not, he doesn't care about that. He only cares about the risk. Like he's not
I know,
in incest at all.
But, and I don't know, it's weird to me that like from her very first scene, like you can tell she wants her cousin. Like it's straight away. It's first thing, she's just like,
she's not
hey,
hiding
cuz, like super into it because obviously she can't act and was like a kid who couldn't act. And
Andy Garcia,
like, hey,
handsome man.
Yeah, but he's your cousin, girl. Calm down.
But if he was my cousin, maybe I'd feel the same way, sir. I'm not sure.
We'll never know.
You could have a little scene making some gnocchi in the back of a restaurant. And...
it's uncomfortable. Anyway, all right. Look, we've wasted time, but now the meat and potatoes. Which is the best film? Because this is a genuine dilemma.
Mm-hmm. So,
who wants to go first?
I don't know if mine will be against the grain, so I'll go first. I always had this opinion, and like what I've known of The Godfather has always been this opinion that part 2 is one of the few examples where it improves on the first and is a better movie. Like it's, you know, even in the stand description, I think it says like highly regarded as like the best sequel of all time. Like it's something where it's quality straight out of the gate. And I mean, you mentioned the Metacritic score earlier, so maybe I'm not against the grain, but I think the original is my favorite. Like I think it's the best. I don't know. I think Marlon Brando in that like gives that movie like such a, you know, a standout performance with him. You also have Al Pacino in that as well. I like the family vibe in the first one. I like the stuff that's going on with Sonny, like with the hit on Marlon Brando. It's like out of nowhere, it like shocked me. I was like, wait, what? I was like, Marlon Brando's not in all three of these? What's going on? Like,
did you see the oranges and know straight away?
The oranges, man.
I didn't know. I don't know any of these references. So when he got shot, it blew me away. I feel like just, you know, I'm not expecting Luca Brasi to die like that straight away. Like, it's like, you know, it's like, oh, well, the body armor didn't help him much with that. It's like, I like that scene. Like, there's the tense scene in the hospital.
Yeah, that scene is great.
Like that's really tense. Like standing out the front as well and watching the car pull up, and then the whole thing with the cop, the gun in the bathroom, like it's school scene. And I think it ends on such a great thing. Now, obviously, it was probably inspired by this movie, but like watching it, I'm like, oh, this is like the Breaking Bad scene, like where the hit on all the families, like it's all happening like at this one time, like, and he's just like being baptized or whatever, like, you know, it's this something nonchalance happening while the heads of all 5 families are being massacred and killed. Like, and it's such a great scene, and I really like it.
Like that baptism in blood it's like a cornerstone of any film class, any sort of film analysis. They're like, this is how you use montage. They refer to like the first example back in the 1910s, and then they refer to this, like that's how you do it. So this film's like, there's a reason why this film is considered one of the best films made. It's like they've done everything the best.
Yeah. So my vote, like I think the best one is the first one.
Grana, come in swinging.
I think the Metacritic score is interesting. Like, apparently back in the day, people just didn't get number 2, like the switching timelines and stuff like that. And it's a lot more of a confusing story. Like the storyline is a lot harder to follow in number 2. Like I feel like I need to rewatch it to understand it. As for, I mean, I heard this on a podcast I was listening to this week, and I 100% agree. I think the first movie is way more watchable. Like, it's a more fun movie to watch, but number 2 is a better movie. Like, number 2, like, you have De Niro and Pacino, like, at their absolute peak, just tearing up scenery.
Yeah.
Like, De Niro is so compelling. And the way he, like, mimics Brando and what he does, like how character he created, and then gives us another version of him as a younger man, is so good. Like, yeah, as you said, that scene where he takes out the mobster with the gun wrapped up in the towel, and like it catches fire. Like, oh, it's all just so good.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could go either way. I really could go either way. Like, I think the ending of 2 is amazing too, where like he calls his son back and says, "No, you're not. You got to go to Rio today, or wherever you're going." Yeah. And then he sends Fredo out, and the gun just creeps into the corner of the screen, like takes him out. Like
he's got that Hail Mary. He's saying the Hail Mary over there.
Like he obviously knows it's coming. I don't know. It's really good. Number 2 is really good, but I think I enjoyed watching number 1 more. Like, you're right, the family vibe in number 1 is a lot of fun. Like, it's really fun to get involved in that.
You start out with a little bit of oil, and you fry some garlic. Then you throw in some tomatoes, some tomato paste. You fry it. You make sure it doesn't stick. You got it to a boil. You shove in all your sausage and your meatballs. Huh? And a little bit of wine. And a little bit of sugar. And that's my trick.
Why don't you cut the crap? I got more important things for you to do. How's Paulie?
Oh, Paulie, won't see him no more.
And all those characters are really compelling. I think there's some strange scenes, like where Sonny gets killed and 100 mobsters just appear out of nowhere and just absolutely riddle the shit out of him with bullets.
Yeah.
Like, Brando can take a few shots too. Like, getting shot 5 times, Vito, like getting shot 5 times in the back and just living. Like, what an old bastard.
Hey man, he's a mobster, right? They're hard to kill. There are some weird effects in the first one. That scene where Sonny's beating up Connie's husband, and like you see a punch clearly just miss.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's glaring, but
it's kind of awkward.
Oh man, I forgot about Connie's husband. I hated that dude, man. I wanted him to die so bad.
What a dirtbag. I forgot watching these is how much like racism there is in this, and every 5 minutes he's just like, "You guinea, you wop." He's like throwing out these slurs that I'm like, "Damn, imagine saying that in front of your family."
Yeah, it's a pretty old movie. It's not, and like obviously an old movie set in an older time.
I think it's totally accurate.
Yeah,
and the scenes where you see him, like Connie says something, he's like, "Connie, shush." I'm like, oh, I can't imagine saying that to like my wife in front of her family or something. That would just be horrible.
But yeah, back in the back of the head.
Yeah, but back in the 50s, that was just how they did.
Yeah. So yeah, like I would happily say go to number 2 as well. I think I enjoyed watching number 1 more. Like, and you're right, Brando is just so compelling. It's such an iconic performance.
Yeah.
We're gonna make him an offer we can't refuse. Like, there's just so many lines that everybody knows. You know exactly what you're doing, even if you can't quote it very well.
Yeah.
Like,
the horse's head.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what that means. That phrase, horse head, you know it. It has meaning because of this film. It's crazy.
Like, with I'll touch on the horse's head first. Like, man, that dude must be a deep sleeper because I don't know.
Yeah.
He just wakes up, he's swimming in blood. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
All of a sudden. But that's the thing. Like, Marlon Brando, I've seen the memes so many times, and I don't know why my brain just didn't attach it to these movies. But like look how they massacred my boy. Like, it's like there's so many great lines that are from these movies, and a lot of my like knowledge of these movies came from either Simpsons or Seinfeld. I feel like, and as soon as I saw the horse and he was talking about the horse, I'm like, I think something bad happens to that horse. And I knew it was coming. But I was like you, Grana. When I finished it, I was legit like, I don't know which one I liked more. Like, I really like part 2 is awesome, and Robert De Niro is amazing in that as well. And I could have had a whole movie of that. I really could have had a whole a 10-year span of Robert De Niro like showing that development continue on.
We almost do, right? It's like an hour and a bit of the film. So
yeah, I know, but I wanted more though. When his final scene happened, I wanted more of that, and so there's both really good films, and part 2 is definitely arguably like the best sequel ever made. Like, it's such a good sequel. It follows up on the quality. Personally, I liked 1 more, but I can see the argument of 2 being the better film.
Yeah, it's super interesting how you're right, because Brando is like this transcended performance that everybody reveres, everyone talks about. It's like that's one of the biggest performances ever. Like, especially because he was this Hollywood hunk playing this grizzled age mobster. but being such a great actor, he just made this performance magical.
Hmm.
And he's got this real gravitas to him. But then on the other hand, you've got Robert De Niro almost doing the same thing, if not doing the same thing in the second one. Like, especially now that we know who De Niro is, seeing a young Robert De Niro just giving this phenomenal performance. Like, you've got these two heavyweights just anchoring these films, and then you've got Al Pacino in both of them as well. It's because I can see either of those being like, that's the performance that I like the most, because they're both so good. Like, and you've both given the right answer. I think either of them work. It is really hard to pick which one.
So you're the tiebreaker.
So I think, look, overall, I agree that the first one is more watchable. It's shorter. It's more sort of straightforward. It's got a lot more iconography as well. Like, there's so many scenes and stuff that we know from the first one.
Yeah.
But then the second one, I think overall is probably. I think I preferred the second one in this rewatch. I think. I don't know.
I can see Conan being torn apart here.
I genuinely am. I genuinely came at it. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, because they both do such great jobs as well about exploring different elements of the American dream. Like, number one is looking at power and how America as a country is sort of corrupted by the power that it seeks. And there's this really interesting article that came out recently comparing America's pulling out of Afghanistan to like the Godfather's message, saying, like, this is a common narrative in American identity. The Godfather spun it then, and like we're still seeing the effects of it now, that you can't get power and not get dirty. But then number two is this great comparison then of the American dream itself and how it starts and was optimistic, but then how it becomes corrupt and collapses, right?
Yep.
And like, capitalism as a foundation is inherently corrupt, and it's comparable to the mafia. And then just like this, they both analyze family in such a good way. I think I liked in number two that it feels like a much more, like, you're seeing the Marlon Brando story of young Marlon Brando. You're seeing the story that he would have been living as a younger man. You're seeing him trying to figure out how to control this empire. You're seeing the back. There's a lot more like, cloak and dagger deals getting made where he's telling one person one thing, someone else another thing. And even though it is very complicated, it's just really riveting to watch him like play this chess match. And
I loved him going back to the person who killed his like mum and dad as a kid, who like tried to kill him as a kid, and be like, he'll grow up one day. And like the way he does it, like just like lean in and just like stick it in and
drags it up.
It's brutal, but yeah, Robert De Niro's great.
He's so good. Yeah, it's like you need to award the first one for being so standout and arguably a perfect film, but then you need to award the second one for being a sequel that arguably surpasses the first. It's like both of them get extra points. They're already at like 100, so I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's just a preference thing. Hey,
so what's your preference?
Like I said, I think I preferred number two on this rewatch at least. I can see it being each time I rewatch them, I will be like, oh, I like this one more, and then I like this one more. I enjoyed the second. Yeah, I enjoyed the second one more this time.
There'll be the gas leak year where we prefer the third one the best.
Like, Sophie Coppola, underrated performance.
Man, so good.
Bring in the heat.
I'm really interested in incest now. My cousins have never looked so attractive.
Maybe it's not so bad. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go with two. Like, I was really torn after it. I was like, I legitimately don't know what I'm going into this podcast to say which one's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think Marlon Brando wins it over for me, and just like, I never watching them before. Like, it really, like, I really enjoyed watching the first one. Like, I was like, oh, this is like what I've missed, like this is like why this film is so revered. So I guess after watching that and then going into two, the quality sort of expected. While in number one, like, I went into it like Grana being like, is this going to be like the good, the bad, and the ugly sort of thing, where I know this is classic for a reason, but it's an old-timey movie and I'm not into it, but I really enjoyed it. So I think it was more of a surprise.
Yeah. And I think on when I watched it first, I felt the same. And that's why I do one day. I think each time you rewatch it, you get more out of it and find which one's better or which you appreciate more.
And that scene, like in the diner, where like the gun's in the bathroom, like, and he's just like talking to him. I feel like that's so tense. Like, I was sitting there like, oh, on the edge of my seat the whole time.
And it's great because he comes out and he doesn't shoot, and so it subverts it. It's like, he's actually he's not gonna do this.
Yeah.
But then you see in his eyes. He acts so well with his eyes in that scene.
Yeah.
And you see this decision get made, and he just flicks a switch, and it's like, this is where, like, this isn't going to go well for Michael. This is the start of something bad, and he makes the decision, and it's And
then he just like stands there, and it's like, I'm like yelling at the screen. You were told to drop the damn gun. Drop the damn gun.
Hagen made this clear.
Doesn't do any of the stuff that they'd gone over. It's
No, great. The one thing I didn't enjoy as much in the first one is I did enjoy his little sojourn to Italy.
I was going to say, we haven't talked about that, and it does stand out a bit, I feel like, in the first one.
It's trying, in the same way that the second one is showing Italy through Robert De Niro. I think this is trying to show the roots of the country, right? It's trying to show where this all started, where these bonds of family came from, and these power structures that have translated to America all stem from originally. But I don't know. On the rewatch, I felt it did drag a little bit. And
it was definitely my least favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never believed that his bodyguard betrayed him. I was like, I don't understand. Why has that happened?
Yeah. And I don't know. We haven't talked about Kay Corleone either much. Like, it's weird that she's like just holding the candle, waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
Like, I've been back for a year, and she's like, and then still almost immediately leaves with him and gets married. Like, I don't know. He had a secret wife in Sicily.
That's the weird part where he never says, he's like, by the way, I was married, and she was blown up.
She was blown up in a car bomb. Yeah.
Yeah. So heads up.
So that was a bad day. So how have you been?
How's teaching going? Like, there is a lot of sort of revisionist reviews on this film where it's not great towards women, and from a feminist reading, it's obviously not a good text. But Kay's the sort of that example. It's like she's more or less the only female character in the first one, and even in the second one, too. Connie's got a bit more to work with, but in the first one, it really is just Kay, and she's not really a character. She's kind of she's there. Yeah.
I will say, I found in the first one there was a few scenes where I was like, Connie's not a great actress. Like,
no, the first one's got a lot of operatic performances, like Sonny dying, where he's sort of spinning around. It was the same in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I can't believe I used that as one of the reasons it was grounded.
Yeah, I'm not great.
I misremembered, but yeah.
But like we talked about in the Dollars trilogy, like that, a classic Italian cinema of melodramatic operatic actor, people spinning around when they get hit, and like it's sort of got a lot of moments like that where everyone's punches and swings are really over the top. And I don't think it detracts from most of it, but in Sonny's death, you notice it. Because
it has that thing where you date it, right? Like it always has that thing. Like if it came out today, you'd react to that acting a lot differently. Like if it's than back then. But I don't know. I could probably give it part 2. I really like Robert De Niro's performance in that, and it's a good movie.
Be very good.
It is.
I love that line. I do like the line. In my home.
Mike, I almost died myself. It was all so relieved.
In my home! In my bedroom where my wife sleeps!
Where my children come and play with their toys.
Where I sleep. Where my kids come and play with their toys. Like, that's great. I knew that line from Seinfeld, but I was like, it's great. Yeah.
Actually, let's compare closing scenes. Which do you think is better? Because I think the closing scene to the sequel is better. That with them at the dinner table, or with them at the table, and you see Michael sitting there alone. Like, I don't know why, but that scene was really profound to me. This viewer,
it is.
And I was like, that is really powerful and really hit hard.
In what?
And in the second one, the final scene of Godfather 2, where they're at
all back together.
Yeah, so you see them all talking, and Michael reveals he's going to the Marines, and Sonny gets angry, and then everyone goes to talk to Vito, but Michael just sits there alone.
Oh, is that how 2 finishes?
It has the Frito scene where he gets killed, but then
obviously I was picturing.
He turns it off before that. Like,
no. I know that. I remember that scene.
I can't watch this anymore.
I'm out. Not my boy Fredo.
Poor
no, like for some reason, my memory, even though I only watched it a couple of days ago, I thought it faded to black after the Fredo scene, and then the credits came up. But yeah, I remember that scene. So
I think it fades to black, but then it has that scene, or it linked. Yeah. So it's
True.
kind of like a little
I like
final
that then.
scene.
It's as close as you get in 1970s to a post-credit scene.
Yeah. Iron Man shows up.
Yeah, no, it is really profound. Like to see him sitting there, like on his own at the end, like kind of segregated from the family, and their reaction to him, you know, choosing to be a Marine, choosing to stand up for America, to stand up for his country.
Yeah. Like there have been numerous essays written, and there is so much to talk about, just like what these films are saying about family, about like American identity, and how these things aren't compatible and stuff. And that scene in a lot of ways just sums it up, where they're like, you got to be here for the family, and he's like, what's the difference between family and my country? They're the same to me.
They're saps because they risk their lives for strangers.
Oh, that's Pop talking.
You're goddamn right, that's Pop talk.
They risk their lives for their country.
Your country ain't your blood, you remember that.
I don't feel that way.
I don't feel that way.
It's like that is so optimistic, and that's kind of like the embodiment of what American idealism is in a way.
It's naive, right? Like it's obviously not how he views the world at the end of the movie.
Yeah. No, it's great. So yeah, I guess I know we can say number 2, but if we ever do this, if we review this trilogy again in a year, we might all say number 3. Who knows?
I don't know about that one, but yeah.
If we have another year of lockdown, we could have a lot of different opinions in a year.
with my siblings. All right. Do you guys have anything else you needed to say? I'm sure there's a lot that I've missed, and I don't want to cut it too short.
It's like, you know, what do you talk about that other people haven't gone over?
That's the thing. Like these movies have been poured over. Yeah.
I will say I'm very glad I've finally watched these films. I appreciated them way more than I thought I would. And after watching them, you know, I was like, oh, I want to watch Scarface, you know, and Apocalypse Now.
Not like Scarface isn't that good.
Okay, true, but I want to see.
I'm keen to watch The Sopranos now.
Yeah, I watched Goodfellas a few weeks ago, and so I was like, I'm on Mafia high. I love the mob. I want to read all about the 5 families and the wars
And even though I only watched it last year, it kind of made me want to rewatch The Irishman now that I've like had the context of this, but seeing all them actors, you know, together again, sort of thing. But
yeah, doing their thing. Would you guys consider this a contender for the best film ever made? Because obviously it's not my favorite film, not in my top 10, but I see why. If I was to say objectively what is the quote unquote best film ever, I could see why this is considered. I don't know if it would be my number 1, but it'd be a contender.
I mean, I can see why it'd be considered. Like, it's no Fellowship of the Ring, but you know, nothing is.
Surely it's
got a better sequel than the Fellowship of the Ring.
Grant, what do you think?
Yeah, no, like I totally see why people have it as their favorite movies. Totally see why it's in these top 10 lists. And like, communal top 10 lists are always strange. Like top 10 lists or lists made up by groups of people are never what an individual would necessarily choose most of the time.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel this way in the Hottest 100 every year. It's like this song won because it's the song that everybody had on their list, but it was at the top of nobody's list, I feel like. I feel like definitely Shawshank Redemption, that is that movie to a T. Like if you had to fill out
I was about to say, actually, Conan, my favorite is Shawshank Redemption.
I will vomit on your grave.
Sorry, what are you saying, Grant?
I feel like if you're filling out a top 10 list of movies and it's like, I don't know what to put as number 10, a lot of people are just going to put Shawshank Redemption. They're going to put like Forrest Gump. And but I feel like Godfather is genuinely probably better than a lot of those movies. Like it genuinely does deserve to be up there.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a hard thing to do. Like you can't say this is the world's best film because you're right. It's a communal list and it's kind of hard to gauge that. But I get if you're looking at things like, you know, performances, style, timelessness, just impact. Quality, impact. So that's the thing, like legacy, impact on broader culture, on the film industry. That's why this and Citizen Kane are always the big two. And both of them, I think, are probably equally as important in terms of how they just define cinema. Like I say, every single show, every single movie, every conversation usually has some sort of reference to this. Even if you don't realize it, it permeated sort of Western identity.
Yep. But I mean, yeah. Obviously, there's points in it that like you can point to bad acting or overacting or stuff like that, where it's like I don't know. I can't really point at anything in Shawshank Redemption and be like, oh, that's bad acting, or that was a bad performance. You
Are
know,
you seriously trying to say that Shawshank is better than The Godfather now?
I haven't watched Shawshank Redemption since I was a child. I watched it as a child, and I remember really liking it, watching it with my dad. But I don't know. I haven't watched it in a modern lens.
Shawshank is a good movie.
I know it is. Like,
Shawshank's fine, but it just blows my mind that they're
No
like,
Godfather.
this is cinema. This is cinema defined.
Okay.
I think
keen to.
it deserves to be up there. It's not better than The Godfather or Godfather 2, but
I'm keen to actually talk to my dad about this movie. Like, obviously, he's watched these many times over the years, and I'd never seen them. So I'm keen to talk to him about these movies finally.
Go to him and be like, I need a favor, Dad. You come to me on the day of... I don't know what your dad
my
does.
daughter's wedding. Yeah.
Like, no, that was 10 years ago, Dad.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on another installment of The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. What have we got coming up next, Luke, I think?
So, going with the theme of, like classic films instead of movies, like classic films, and all the hubbub in the world at the moment in regards to Spider-Man No Way Home, I figured we'd watch arguably a lot of people think is the best Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy. Now I know we're going to get some hot takes in that one because, like, some people think like one is the best when obviously it's three, but we can get into that argument next fortnight.
Stop spoiling it.
But yeah, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, which I haven't watched in quite a while, but I loved those movies, and as a kid, they were like comic book movies for me. So
yeah,
I loved these movies as a teenager.
I'll just say it now. I'll bring it up on the next podcast again, but I even loved Spider-Man 3 when it came out, to the point that I thought emo Peter Parker was the coolest thing ever, and I started brushing my hair over my forehead at high school.
And learning how to dance.
I mean, I had an emo face, so I resonated a lot with him.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, cool. I'm excited. I'm very keen to check out a good Marvel trilogy for once. All right. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell everyone you know about this. Share it on there. You can follow us on socials. Get on it, spread the word so you can hear more about goodness. And if you enjoy listening to us talk about films, you can also watch us talk about video games. We have our brother podcast, Bonus XP. That comes out every other week, as far as I'm aware.
It's not the cousin podcast. It's not the cousin one.
But there is lots of incest with it.
It is pretty cool.
So yeah, if you like this, please follow, like, share, and subscribe with that as well. And we'll see you next time.
Arrivederci.
Bye. You broke my heart, Fredo.
Broke my heart.